Your mayor of London, he's a disaster. He's a disaster. I think they're weak, but I also think that they want to be so politically correct. I think they don't know what to do. Europe doesn't know what to do.
For more than 75 years, one promise has kept Europe stable. An attack on one is an attack on all. But what happens if that promise disappears? What happens if President Trump decides the United States is done with NATO? This is not hypothetical anymore. As you are watching this, the world's biggest security alliance is under stress in a way we have not seen before. In a single week, Donald Trump did not just criticize Europe. He declared it weak, attacked its leaders, questioned its future, and most shockingly framed Europe itself as a geopolitical adversary of the United States.
Your mayor of London, he's a disaster. He's a disaster.
This has never happened in modern history. The United States has openly begun redefining its relationship with Europe and with NATO. European leaders are scrambling, debating their future, their security, and their relationship with their most powerful ally. But there is one person on the planet who understands it perfectly: Vladimir Putin. Because if NATO weakens, even slightly, this becomes the best day of his political life. It began with a political interview on December 9th. Trump did not mince words. He called European nations decaying societies run by weak leaders.
Most European nations, they're decaying. They're decaying.
Then he escalated further, saying that many of those countries will not be viable countries any longer. He blamed immigration for destroying Europe's social fabric, echoing rhetoric that European media compared to far-right replacement conspiracies. This is not the language of an ally. It is the language of someone describing a collapsing opponent. Europe's initial reaction was shock, but Trump was just getting started. In the same interview, Trump bragged that NATO calls him daddy. Immediately after that, he mocked NATO allies for talking but not producing, criticized Sweden as unsafe, questioned further NATO expansion, and scolded Europe for failing to end the war in Ukraine. This was not mixed messaging. This was Trump telling Europe that he leads the alliance and that Europe is failing him. Baltic and Polish officials read this as a warning shot, a signal that U.S. commitment is no longer guaranteed. But the real shock did not come from Trump's mouth. It came from Trump's official White House strategy document. The new national security strategy did something unprecedented. It cast the European Union as a geopolitical adversary. Not Russia, not China, Europe. The document accused the EU of regulatory suffocation and subversion of democratic processes. Then came the line that sent Europe into full panic mode. The United States must cultivate resistance to Europe's current trajectory. This is diplomatic warfare. Call for American intervention inside Europe's political systems. Europe's top diplomat, Josep Borrell, responded by calling it a declaration of political war on the European Union. Let that sink in. Europe's diplomacy chief publicly called a sitting U.S. president an adversary. Then came the Ukraine pivot. While Europe continues to support Kyiv unconditionally, Trump told President Zelensky to play ball with Vladimir Putin, meaning concede territory. European leaders were alarmed. They urgently met with Zelensky, fearing Trump would force a peace deal that rewards Russian aggression and sidelines Europe from decisions about its own security. The Kremlin openly praised this shift. Russia's spokesman said the adjustments being seen were consistent with Russia's vision. In Moscow, champagne glasses clinked. NATO has always been the wall that limits Putin's ambitions. But when the United States questions that wall, even slightly, everything changes. Baltic states panic diplomatically. Poland accelerates defense spending. Germany and France argue over strategy. Hungary drifts closer to Moscow. Europe loses coherence. Putin does not need to invade anything. He just needs Europe to doubt itself. While Europe panics and the United States turns inward, one man watches with complete clarity: Vladimir Putin. For the first time in 20 years, he is watching the Western alliance fracture without Russia firing a single shot. For 2 decades, Putin pushed one idea: that Europe is weak, divided, decaying, and destined to fail. He tried propaganda. He tried energy blackmail. He tried war. None of it worked the way he wanted. Then Donald Trump arrived and started saying the same things from the Oval Office. Trump described Europe as decaying, led by weak politicians, with countries that may not even be viable. That is not Russian state television. That is the President of the United States. When Trump's national security strategy accused the EU of regulatory suffocation and democratic subversion, it hit Europe harder than any move from Moscow or Beijing. The line about cultivating resistance to Europe's trajectory stunned diplomats. Russia immediately celebrated the strategy as aligned with its worldview. Putin spent decades trying to turn America against Europe. He failed. Trump did it in a week. And it went further. Trump pressured Ukraine to accept Russian terms. European officials met in secret, fearing the United States would impose a bad peace that rewards aggression. Russian officials applauded openly. For the first time, the United States was closer to Russia's negotiating position than Europe's. This is not diplomacy. It is a geopolitical miracle for the Kremlin. Trump mocked NATO allies, questioned expansion, praised authoritarian leaders, and demanded Europe defend itself. Even his jokes were followed by open ridicule. This is exactly what Russia wants. Eroded trust, planted fear, European capitals asking themselves whether America will actually show up. Putin does not need to attack NATO's core principle. Trump is making Europeans question it on their own. For the first time since World War II, European leaders are publicly describing a US president not as an ally, but as a threat. Officials describe his worldview as a brutal clarification. Headlines call it political war. Putin spent years trying to create this divide. Trump handed it to him. Even on China, the main strategic rival of the United States, Trump shifted direction. Instead of uniting Western allies, restrictions on chip exports were relaxed. Advanced AI processors were sold. The US government took a direct cut from the sales. Officials warned this would accelerate China's military and artificial intelligence capabilities. Strategically, this changes everything. If America is softer on China and harsher on Europe, Putin gets the world he wants. A fractured West, divided NATO, a rising China that Russia can align with, a multipolar world where Western unity collapses. This is not the West falling from external pressure. It is collapsing from within. America attacks Europe. Europe loses trust in America. NATO weakens. Ukraine becomes vulnerable. Populist movements echo the rhetoric. Russia quietly applauds. To Putin, this feels like a blessing, but it may not last, because a weakened NATO forces Europe to confront reality. Europe may finally build its own defense identity, a unified command, a coordinated defense industry, massive military investment. This would not happen overnight, but pressure creates evolution, and a stronger Europe could become a more dangerous opponent than before. Meanwhile, Russia grows more dependent on China. China's economy dwarfs Russia's. Moscow risks becoming a junior partner. If Europe eventually stabilizes and unifies, Putin loses the advantage he gained. This is the paradox. Chaos helps Putin now, but order may defeat him later. NATO is not just a military alliance. It is a belief that Europe stands together, that America has its back, that security is shared. When that belief weakens, the world enters a new era of uncertainty. Power shifts, alliances fracture, old rules dissolve. Putin may enjoy the first phase of that world, but no one controls what comes next. Not Europe, not America, not China, not even Russia. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new one.